All right, hello and welcome back to the channel. People are getting absolutely filtered by Everdark Augur and Elden Ring Night Rain, which I made a video on yesterday. It was my last video of me doing it for the first time, and it was supposed to be a solo video, but I accidentally ended up queuing into matchmaking. So I mean, it went better than I thought it would. I'll be perfectly honest, but yeah, if you watched that video or this video or any of my other videos for that matter, I appreciate it very much. The support shown on my videos is doesn't go unnoticed, and yeah, I just really appreciate it. There are people unironically saying that Everdark Augur is like the worst Everdark in the game. Have they fought Everdark Noster? Everdark Noster is a horrible fight. Even regular Noster or Sentient Pest is a horrible fight. Like, sure, visually it's really cool, at least like in its second phase, and the Everdark third phase is cool visually as well, but like it doesn't even have that many new moves in its third phase, and the new moves that it does have are just super over-the-top modified versions of moves it already has. Meanwhile, Everdark Noster has I'm pretty sure 90% of its moves are brand new. Obviously, I guess the Giant Tsunami is like a modified version of its regular water attack, but I don't know, I think Everdark Augur is super cool and super fun. I do think that the tracking on the Storm Ruler projectiles, the strong version and the light version, could have better tracking. Well, I feel like maybe that's more so just a strong attack because it's just slow, and the boss, if it's moving, you'll most likely miss if you do the charged up strong attack with it. But yeah, the regular projectiles are hit most of the time, and it might honestly just be better damage to spam that instead. But yeah, really quick, I'll just mention what I'm doing in this video. I'm just grinding more Nebula camos in the background. I kind of was stuck on what I wanted to do for videos after completing Nebula, because it's yeah, I still technically have more guns that I could get it on, and that's what I'm doing now. But for a little bit, I was I kind of completed the grind. I did the minimum requirement of guns at the very least, and got the calling card and everything for multiplayer and zombies now at this point. I'm not doing Warzone. Fuck the Warzone Abyss grind. It's a cool camo, but it's not that cool looking. I could just spam Plunder and the casual Resurgence or Battle Royale modes, which have bots, which I completely forgot that was even a thing that they added. But I don't know. Whenever I try to queue up for just a regular game of Battle Royale, whenever I get the slight inclination to dip my toe into that game mode, it always takes forever to find a game, and I don't know why. I get it's what is it? It's 100 players, 150, something like that for regular Battle Royale. I mean, it's a lot of players, but still, the game is free to play, and it's taking multiple minutes to find a single game. I don't even hate Warzone like that or anything. It's just yeah, like I mentioned in the last video, the Battlefield 6 reveal, multiplayer reveal, with all the trailers and all the live gameplay that they put out the other day. That had a whole bunch of content creators go out there and just play the game and stream it for multiple hours. So there's tons of footage out there. People talk about their impressions and everything. And there's something else that I also want to talk about today, but I don't remember what it is. Also, I know I'm sort of, I guess, being quote unquote ungrateful, because Cold War didn't even have this from what I remember. But it's crazy. It's 2025 and we have a pause timer because this game is always online. I suppose I should be glad they even let you pause solo games in the first place, but Jesus Christ. What would being able to pause the game for an indefinite amount of time even allow you to do? Because there has to be a logistical reason as to why they don't let you just pause the game. There must be some sort of super niche exploit that they know about that could happen if they let you pause the game indefinitely, but it's just what would it even be? Maybe they don't want people super high times in their games. It's oh no, you took 3 hours to get to round 25. You look like an idiot. What? I don't get what the deal with that is. It's probably something just internal that they realized they didn't want. I would imagine it would probably have to do something with some sort of exploit involving stats, or maybe even being able to do weird stuff with the macro interjections or something like that. That's the only reason they would do that, because it's yeah, the games before this, I mentioned in Cold War, I'm pretty sure you weren't even able to pause the game. I was doing some other weapons earlier in this, doing the direct mode in Liberty Falls, and for some reason when I got to round 11, the Mangler wouldn't spawn every single round, and I wasn't sure why. It seems to have fixed it in this game, but I was kind of worried that was going to happen again, but thankfully it didn't, so I don't have to deal with that. But yeah, I can't remember what else I want to talk about instead of Battlefield. It might pop up into my head in a little bit here, but I guess we'll just talk about Battlefield for the time being. Yeah, there's lots of just overall optimism and hype. Obviously, a new game with the way it was revealed and everything, it's gonna get a bunch of people excited. But from everything that they've shown, at least so far, with the few maps and the few guns and the whole art direction and the setting and everything, it has people very excited. And for any other franchise, I feel this would be a super slam dunk, just knocking it out of the park in terms of a reveal for a game. But because it's Battlefield, it has this weird connotation to it, where because the last few games, or the last two I should say, with 2042 and Battlefield 5, it's yeah, Battlefield players have been burned the last few entries. So while a lot of them are excited, and I'm excited for it because it looks super cool. There's definitely some pessimism and even cautious optimism in the community, more so than just outright hype. But yeah, from what they've shown, everything, the destruction is super like an in-depth part of the game in terms of like map design and everything like that. And you just see like people like shooting rockets and using tanks and like, you know, planes crashing into buildings and everything. And it's just super over the top and like spectacle heavy, I guess is the way I would describe it, where obviously it's still like a functional part of like game design and everything, but just like visually looking at it, it's like, it's so, well, like I said, over the top in like a good way. They also brought back mechanics like contextual leaning and the little combat roll that you do when you drop from a high enough height. I think if you hold the crouch button while you're falling and you from a certain height, you'll roll, and maybe it does reduce damage, or maybe you take less damage at a certain height. I don't know. Look at that, I got Mystic Gold. Okay, well now I need to get the other gun that I need to do, which is the Fang LMG. Where's the box at? It's over there. All right, no, I don't need to do that. I need to kill manglers. Whoopsie. Actually, I should go get it anyways, because I need to kill the zombies to progress the rounds either way. Okay, well, whatever. Anyways, yeah, they brought that back in terms of movement. The movement is not super like over the top and Adderall ridden like, you know, a bunch of FPSs are in like you know, Call of Duty, which I mean, I say that like it's a bad thing. I like the Omni movement system. I like the movement system in this game. I understand why people, you know, especially people who like slower games like Modern Warfare 2, or even, you know, obviously Battlefield games, people who like games like that aren't usually a fan of like super hectic movement and like twitchy movement. But the movement in the new Battlefield game looks super like responsive and snappy, while not being, you know, over the top and, you know, fast. You're not sliding around corners and breaking people's ankles or anything. There is a slide and there is like a prone dive thing. It's not dolphin diving exactly, but you know, I believe during either of those you can't shoot until you fully hit the ground. So there's also like a crouch sprint, which I think Battlefield 5 had. I'm not actually sure, but yeah, that's the thing. And there's been a whole bunch of gameplay that has been coming out for it, you know, like on Twitter and stuff, because the Battlefield Labs sort of testing that they've been doing, where I think you could just sign up for that. Yeah, up until this point, they've been holding like player tests to, you know, obviously test features in the game and, you know, find out what players like and don't like about certain things. And one of the things that they are sort of testing the waters with, I guess, is the way that they're handling the weapons across the classes. So obviously the class system is returning. You have assault, engineer, support, and recon, and some of the like equipment that the classes have has been sort of switched up, because in my mind I remember like Battlefield 4 where assault was like the assault rifle with the medic bag, but its support has the medic bag and the ammo supply. So it has both of the sort of, well, you know, support equipment. That's very interesting. The assault class, I believe, has the like utility grenade launchers. They can have flashbangs or just straight up like grenades, and they also have a sling equipment thing that allows them to also carry a primary weapon in place of a grenade launcher. So I think that's cool, but people are, you know, complaining about how kind of really good to have two primary weapons. I believe you have reduced ammo if you do use that though, so there's that trade-off. But yeah, speaking about the overall just weapons, they're testing two systems, and that's going to be present in the beta, I believe they said, which if you're signed up from Battlefield Labs before the reveal, you're going to have access to it from starting on the 7th of August, and I don't remember when it runs to, but then it stops, and then I believe the open beta period starts on the 9th. And, you know, there's multiple sessions that'll happen over the course of like weekends. But how did I know, sitting here rolling for this LMG, this was going to be the way that it goes? And I will say, I do think Dark Matter is a better looking camo, but this is still really cool looking. Although it's not nearly as like glowy or vibrant as Dark Matter. I wish it was, but you know, it's fine. Did the box go back to where it was earlier? I think it did. Watch me blow all $48,000 I have trying to get this LMG, and I don't get it. Oh, look, I got it. Wow. Okay. Well, holy shit. Okay. Well, speak of the devil, he shall appear. But yeah, in 2042, they had a sort of, obviously the class system was sort of like taken out back and shot in favor of the specialist system. I forget what it's actually called, but you know, the hero system basically that they put in there, because there were no classes. Their weapon system, you could equip any weapon on any specialist, and you know, later when they retrofitted the class system back into the game, you could still do that, but you got bonuses for using class specific weapons on their, you know, actual class. So I believe like for example, if you used a sniper rifle on a recon character, you would get, what was it? It was no aiming idle sway. It was something like that, or maybe infinite hold breath. It was something specific like that, but that's just an example. And they have that system in the new Battlefield 6, where there are like signature weapons for each class, and if you use it on that class, you get bonuses. So I believe it's engineer. If you use an SMG, you get a tighter hit fire spread and something else. I forget what it is, but yeah, they have that system in the game, but they're also going to try out having class locked weapons as well. And I don't remember whether they're like testing it to see, you know, if they're going to pick one or the other, or whether they're just going to have both systems in the game, and you know, just depending on what playlist you pick, I guess, or what server you decide to join. I don't know if there's going to be a server browser. They haven't mentioned anything about that specifically yet, but oh my god, look how slow this thing shoots. I'm gonna get double tap on this just to see how fast it is, because I just realized I also don't have any fucking perks. But yeah, this is like the first time I've actually ever used this gun. But yeah, I think in the beta, they're going to be testing out both systems. So maybe there's going to be different playlists that you can just pick when it comes out. Look at this fucked up perk loadout that I'm running because these perks are unironically good. I believe they did put out a tweet, you know, after the reveal and them talking about the two different weapon systems. I believe they did say that they're going to have both in the game. So on one hand, you know, it's like good to give players options, but on the other hand, I see people that are worried about like sort of dividing the player base. Obviously, if a game is popular enough and the game is big enough, then that doesn't really matter. You look at something like Fortnite and there's like a shit zillion game modes that people play. Now, granted, not all of them are super populated, but there's, you know, obviously with all the community created stuff, you know, there's tons of different things to play in that game. That's not just a battle royale. And the game is popular enough that even with like, you know, like building mode and zero build in Fortnite, you know, obviously there are plenty of people still playing the game, you know, where both of those options are filled in terms of players. But yeah, if Battlefield 6 is, you know, successful at launch, it's probably going to be, there's no doubt in my mind. Just everything that they've shown has a bunch of people excited. So at the very least at launch, you know, if they have two different selectable playlists, you know, I don't think player counts or like matchmaking time should be a huge concern. Now over time, you know, if the community just prefers one system over the other and in the other playlist with the different weapon system, you know, matchmaking times become too long, then that would suck obviously. But I don't know where I stand on it, because on one hand I do like the idea of being able to use any weapon on any character, and I think if the benefits of using a signature weapon on a class are like substantial enough, then I think that is a decent enough sort of reason to, you know, have that system exist as it is in the first place. Although on the other hand, if the benefits are so good that using a signature weapon is like the only way you should be playing the game, then at that point, why not just make the weapon system locked? But I don't know. I always like the idea of choice, but depending on how it is for the health of the game or whatever, then, you know, that could obviously change. But yeah, just overall, the like quality of just the way the game looks visually is like super crispy. I'm assuming it's running on whatever newest version of the Frostbite engine is, which has me kind of concerned because that engine is like notorious for like a bunch of just bugs generally speaking, but also specific things to do with like netcode and just like kind of jank shit. But I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Obviously the playtest they did with all those content creators, you know, they were all, I'm assuming they were all hooked up via LAN, like locally, and not just using internet. Or maybe they were, I'm not sure actually. But yeah, something about the like aesthetic of the game, you know, is super, not just specifically high fidelity. I know, it just, the image quality is super sharp. Even watching streams, I could see like the details and like the environments and the weapons, and I don't know, it just looks really nice. I am kind of concerned how it would run on my computer, but I'm gonna fucking lock it to 60 and see where we go from there. But and yeah, with the amount of destruction and just shit blowing up and how big the maps are, I'm kind of concerned how the game is just gonna perform overall. I think I heard, you know, I watched a few videos of people's gameplay and I heard them say they were playing the game at like 4K. I don't know what hertz they were playing at or what a frame rate they were playing at, but I mean, if the game can't run at 4K and I didn't hear any like huge complaints about performance, then I guess it should be fine. Speaking of which, I remember in the last video I was talking about just like potential PC upgrades that I would want to do in the future if I ever found myself, you know, with the expendable income, or disposable income is the right word. And I forgot to just mention, I mentioned the specs, but just to like give a clear visual input, I'll just put it on the screen of just like a random build that I made on a website. Yeah, is this good? Because it's like I don't really know anything about like the nuances of how, you know, a like GPU or CPU is strong enough. Obviously I know the labels for like NVIDIA graphics cards. If it ends in 90 in whatever generation, then it's the strongest one. So in my mind, I always thought like every graphics card going forward a generation, regardless of what number it has at the end, should be stronger than every single card in the last generation, but that's literally just not true. You know, there's a reason why 4090s are still super sought after, is because it's a really strong graphics card. I don't know why that took me so long to understand. Probably because I'm a brainlet with an elementary reading level, but I mean, I used the wrong gun to kill that guy. God fucking, I'm gonna save and quit after I'm done recording to like actually make this video, and when I load back in here, it's gonna glitch out and the mango's not gonna spawn every single round. I just know that's gonna happen. But yeah, like I also mentioned in the last video, you know, every so often I'll talk about like the weird performance that my computer has, despite the really decent like specs that my computer has. But my computer has this like I don't know what you call it, like a great mesh filter thing. I guess it's to filter out like specifically dust, so it doesn't like get into the computer as easily. It used to have like a front faceplate, but I just took that off because I don't know how air was supposed to get in there in the first place. It was like completely covered in the front, and it had like a side vent that I guess air would supposed to be going through. But yeah, I took that shit off like when I originally got this computer. But yeah, I had that filter thing on the front of it still, because I was like, oh, it's like all it does is filter out dust. But I took it off like recently, and I mean, maybe it's just placebo, but I feel like my computer is running better than it was than when I had it on there. So obviously I'm locking most of my games at 60, just because like even at 1080p, if I try to run a game at like a 120, this game specifically, when I did it, even at 1080p, trying to run it at 120, my game would fucking crash. I haven't tried to do that yet. Now, I was trying to run it at 120 natively, but like I said, I have a 3080 and a 12900K, so fucking I don't know. Yeah, I'll laugh if like all my performance issues with this computer is literally due to heating and due to two separate things that were causing my computer to not get efficient cooling. But I mean, either way, like I mentioned with that potential, you know, PC build, even if this computer does end up actually being fine, like getting that computer, it's not that much more expensive than what I spent on this originally when I bought it. And also, it's either just a slight upgrade or just a straight up like huge upgrade in terms of the components. The graphics card is better, not by like a huge amount, but like enough that, you know, looking at a bunch of benchmarks, it's like super still noticeable. And then obviously I don't know if the CPU is actually an upgrade or not. I haven't looked into that. I should probably look into that. But yeah, obviously having a DDR5 64 gigs of RAM is obviously better than having DDR4 32 gigs of slow RAM. But yeah, going back to Battlefield really quick, they also showed off the portal mode in the game, which is essentially 2042 had the portal mode where you can basically make your own like game modes and rule sets and everything. It was not super in depth in terms of like the things that you could do, but the new version of it that they showed in the Battlefield 6 reveal is like, it looks like a Forge mode from Halo, and even like more in depth than that. I haven't used Forge mode in Halo Infinite, so maybe I don't know how in depth it's gone. I remember Halo 5's Forge mode being super in depth as well. But yeah, there are a bunch of clips in that actually looked like straight up references and like the exact same types of game modes that people made in Halo's Forge mode. And yeah, the good thing with Battlefield and, you know, things like, instead of things like Call of Duty, is that Call of Duty would never add anything like that into any of their games, just because they release a new game every single year. There's no way to build sort of a long-term community, you know, created modes and maps and things like that in a game like this, just because they don't support their games after a year. I mean, I guess they could add something like that to Warzone, but even with Warzone, like, they've shown us that they're willing to completely abandon Warzone and, you know, do another one. So I mean, even trying to be optimistic and looking at it via the long-term game that they do have, they don't even actually support their long-term game, quote unquote long-term. But yeah, with Battlefield specifically, like, you know, obviously a game comes out every few years, and I'll be curious to see if Battlefield 6, how long it's actually supported for, because like 2042, even in the state that it is in and was in when it came out, got support for a little bit. I don't remember how long it was, but I feel like it was definitely longer than a single year at the very least. So with how successful Battlefield 6 is probably going to end up being, I wouldn't be surprised if they had like multiple years of content for the game, which would then in turn allow the portal modes and creations to be, you know, played for longer than a single year. I'm not smart enough to make anything. I never was like super proficient in Forge mode. I'm too stupid. But just like seeing the things that people who are actually talented and skilled could make in something like that, with how in depth it seems to be, is really exciting. I think they mentioned, I almost killed him with the wrong gun again. I think they mentioned that in portal modes that you'll be able to still gain XP and everything like that, which is super cool. Obviously, once you like unlock everything, that doesn't really matter, unless there's sort of going to be like an infinite rank up system like there is in this game, like Call of Duty has had for a while now. I should still do a single player Everdark Augur run just to say that I did it. I mean, I've already done it, but I mean to say that I did it on video. Because yeah, once you understand how that fight actually works, it's not super hard like at all. It just has like a decent chunk of health, and you know, sometimes the attacks don't hit because the boss is moving, which is kind of annoying. But I mean, I refuse to take anybody seriously that says they like Everdark Noster more than any of the Everdarks that they currently have in the game. It's not a good fight. I refuse to even entertain the thought of anybody thinking that. Like, if you like Noster, which is Sentient Pest, because, you know, you think they look cool and you like the music and you just like the sort of quote unquote atmosphere, it's like, that's fine. But I mean, in terms of like the fight mechanically itself, I don't think it's a good fight at all. You spend half the time trying to hit the moth and it just stays in the air, so you end up fighting, I don't even know what it is, we're gonna call him Fartus because that's his actual name, unironically. He looks like a scorpion, but I don't think he's actually a scorpion. I saw a post on Twitter about what bug he actually is, but anyways, so instead of swinging at the moth that is flying in the air half the time, you end up fighting the annoying fucking scorpion instead anyways, and the moth just sits in the air and spams magic at you, and the poison mist that literally goes through everything, and not only does it poison you, it also just does damage to you. I don't know what FromSoft's obsession is in Elden Ring specifically, where poison effects also just do damage to you for no reason. Like, that was not a thing in Souls games from what I remember. Like, poison was purely a status buildup, but I guess Miyazaki's masochistic desires have not been filled, so he decided that, you know what, maybe we should have it damage them while they're standing in it before they're even poisoned. Sick fuck. But yeah, and then Everdark Noster, it's the same fight, obviously. It starts in phase 2, which is the worst phase, because he has that super annoying charge attack where not only does the boss charge at you, but the moth is on top of him spamming magic at you. And then in the Everdark version, I believe Animus is the name, the red bug, which, I mean, he looks super cool. He looks like the DMC5 logo, actually. But yeah, visually, he looks super cool, but like, he spends half the fight not really doing anything besides like summoning giant orbital fucking lasers, and he'll do a metric fuck ton of them at the same time. But usually he just floats in the air and doesn't do anything until you kill one of the other bugs, and then he'll possess it. And they have the same moveset, except they have like one enhanced move where the moth will like fly in the air and like tweak out and shoot a million projectiles at you. And I think the scorpion, when it's possessed, just thrashes around, but does it more so than usual. And I'm not even saying like Noster or the Everdark version is like hard or anything. It's just annoying. Also, I feel like straight up, even fighting him solo, where the scaling is like obviously reduced to the minimum it is, I feel like Sentient Pest has like either more health or more damage resistance, more so than any other boss in the game. It's very strange. But yeah, currently in terms of the Everdarks that they've put out, I like all of them about equally, except for Noster. Like, my top 3 I could be convinced to switch them up in whatever order, but I think a lot of people have Fulgor Everdark at the top. It's so cool. And I know some people don't like Everdark Adele, but I mean, I think he's super cool. You have the giant tornado fucking jumping into the Thunderdome, and he also has the teleport, like Fourth Hokage flying Raijin teleport type shit. It's so cool. And then Augur, it is a gimmick fight with the Storm Ruler, but I don't think it's hard enough to the point that it's annoying. And also, I think just the spectacle of the fight, while still being a functional fight, it's not purely a gimmick fight. There's still a move set that you have to dodge, and you know, the boss has a real health bar. He doesn't die in 4 hits like Yorm. But yeah, I think in terms of like purely in terms of mechanically, the like fighting a boss like one-on-one, I think Fulgor is the best one. And you discover, and I think I might put Everdark Augur in front of Adele, just because I like how chilled out that fight is in terms of, you know, especially compared to like Fulgor or Adele. You know, people complain that you have to use a Storm Ruler for the fight, which I mean, yeah, every single time the Storm Ruler's in the game for a boss fight, you technically have to use it. Although for some of the bosses, you don't have to. For Rykard and for Yorm, I guess you technically don't have to. So, but for the Storm King from Demon Souls, you had to, and for Maris, I'm pretty sure you have to. I think you can actually hit the boss in its new phase, but I don't think it does like any damage, at least not enough for it to be worth it. And yeah, having like your build for your character, you know, you get a good weapon and you build your character around that weapon, and having to sort of disregard that entirely because you have to use the Storm Ruler is kind of, yeah, I get that's kind of annoying, I won't lie. But that just means if you fight Everdark Augur, you have to build for, you know, the weapon that you get in the fight instead. Night Rain is not like a game where your passives are like super important, I feel, because I feel like you could, if you get a max rarity or max upgraded weapon, whether that be purple or gold if you have greater, and you get max level, you could beat any boss in the game, I feel, without any passives. I've literally seen people do runs with the Executioner parry sword only with no passives from other weapons and just leveling up, and your damage is like fine without any passives whatsoever. But yeah, I'm not going to be able to get into the Battlefield open beta or the closed beta, I guess, for the few first days. If you're signing up for Battlefield Labs, it starts on the 7th, but if you're just gonna do the open beta, it starts on the 9th, I believe. So if I want to try out the game, I'm gonna have to wait until the 9th, which is not that far away, so I mean, it's whatever. I'll enjoy watching people play it. The game looks so good, almost too good for it to be true, but I feel like somebody at EA was holding somebody at DICE at gunpoint, metaphorically speaking, and it was like, I used the wrong fucking gun again. And it was like, don't fuck this one up. I know Vince Ampella, I forget what his actual like position in the company is specifically, but I do know that, you know, he worked on like the original Call of Duties like Modern Warfare 2 and stuff like that. And then he went to Respawn, made Titanfall, which is another like beloved FPS genre. And then I think he was working on Apex, and then I'm pretty sure he's like the head of Battlefield's like development now. So that's really promising. He seems to like, you know, mostly get it in terms of like what people want to see in terms of like the game and everything. Although it was pretty obvious what people wanted, especially after 2042 fucking came out. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that literally the next Battlefield game had to be every single thing that 2042 was not. So, but yeah, if I keep talking longer, I could sit here and kill zombies for like hours and hours, and this video will be like 3 hours long. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the video there. If you did enjoy this video and you want to help support the channel, then leaving a like and subscribing would be very much appreciated. But yeah, I have to go edit this video and then probably fucking go to sleep, because my work does this funny thing. Well, they'll schedule me to close and I leave at like 8:30 at night, and then the next day they schedule me, they'll have me work at like 9 in the morning. So it'd be nice if they did that in reverse, but that would be too convenient. Anyways, later. Straight away, go my way, let the nonchalant be command dance to them.
deep.